Hello everyone, I'm very happy to welcome you here in the gallery, and I'm very privileged to talk today to Lauren, and this conversation will become an extension of our long time conversation because I had a chance to visit Lauren during her work for the previous show, for this show Waves. So our conversation has been running already for more than a year, and today we're about to do it first time publicly. So we also feel a bit, because our talks used to be every time so meaningful, and we used to talk about so intimate, so important things. So I'm happy that today we will be talking about your art and diving in and unlock all the emotions, all the stories, narratives, thoughts that are behind your beautiful body of work. And Lauren is currently based in Vienna. She lives and works here, but originally she comes from the States, from Massachusetts, where she was born. She studied in New York, in France, and then she brought all this experience to Vienna. And today we are at the show Waves, and immediately when you see the show, even if you don't know who Lauren is, you can immediately say that this person grew up next to the water, that this person grew up on a seaside, because I also grew up at the large water, and I know that when you're constantly exposed to water, it becomes a part of your personality. And I wanted to ask you, Lauren, about why did you turn to the sea now, in this part of your career, at this stage when you're in Vienna? It started as a feeling of longing, actually, for a feeling of home. And even though I do feel at home in Vienna, there are things that I left behind, of course, like having left the US and living here. And one of those things is this feeling you get being by the ocean, which is something I always was a very powerful feeling for me. And I did grow up like next to the Atlantic Ocean, which is actually, our part of it is a bit terrifying. It's like very rough and very cold and very dark, and also has this very sharp, steep drop off. So when you're going out, like all of a sudden, like you don't go very far and it's already super deep and way over your head. So yeah, I wanted to try with this body of work to reach for that feeling of being at that place and try to recreate it for myself here. And when you walk through the exhibition, you catch up immediately with these various moods, because some paintings are, for me, even look quite erotic and they're longing and they're kind of speaking to you. The other one is very serene. So I also wanted to ask you how this whole series, how did it start? So did you start with plein air sketching, or was it created entirely in your studio? How was your work going for these paintings?
These paintings are from two different places, and one of them, which I started with, is a place where my parents grew up in Connecticut on Long Island Sound, which is a very different type of water from where I grew up, and it's very gentle and serene, and like the waves are this big, and it never really feels very deep or intimidating. And I did a plein air sketch of that place 2 summers ago, which it was like a super simple little like pastel sketch and on brown paper, and it was from this drawing that I started to develop these more highly saturated pastel drawings, and then these small oil paintings on panel, which are in the very back room, which are quite small. And then from there I started to like really commit to the subject matter So that was like a nice process to really decide to commit to that for the series. And yeah, so many of these paintings come, you know, through a long process from that one little drawing.
But then you went quite far away from your original sketches, right? So you really transformed them to imaginary landscapes, imaginary paintings in your studio, right?
Yeah, I think they transformed a lot, because the little plein air drawing is very naturalistic. Like the colors really looked like the colors in that place, and they're maybe a bit softer and gentler, especially with this pastel. You really get a soft feeling more easily. But I think in the studio and like through this process of developing the image, in my work, the colors, especially here, you can see they're not based so much in a real nature, and they really become within a more imaginary feeling because of the color palette, I think, and not so much because of the compositions, but really, like for example, these pink rocks. I mean, in this place where this painting is from, they actually are very famous for having pink granite, but it's not this pink.
And that's why when you look at your paintings, it has a feeling of a very intimate sea painting, like something you look into your memories, into your dreams, into your story. So this kind of magical palette brings a very special feeling about them being more like innerscapes, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that I was thinking a lot about that in this body of work, about the relationship of what you see outside and then how it's filtered through, and you're really also, when you're painting, reflecting what's on the inside, and then somehow the painting happens in between those places, like, because these paintings really came from a real place, but of course they also come from an inner place, and so the result, I think, you see something that's really in between those two worlds, and I think like that doing this body of work also helped me to establish that as an important piece of my work in general, so it helped me recognize it more.
And about your palette, because we even have a quote from Nicole Wittenberg, your peer artist, who told that she sees in this new body of work the palette that is completely yours, that you're evolving in how you apply your colors.
Yeah, that was a really nice thing to hear. Because I don't know, I think when I'm painting, I'm not really, I think I was telling Peter the other day, I don't mix the colors beforehand. So I'm really mixing the colors as I go. And I'm doing that because I want each color to inform my next decision, and that in this way, the colors become like very reactive to each other. And I think that that's what you can see in a lot. Like, for example, this painting with the orange moon, the colors do not, I mean, they do fit together, but they also have a lot of like almost aggression or aggressive relationships to each other, and they're highly reactive. Like there's very strong contrast. But in some places they fit together. So yeah, when I'm thinking about color, I'm really thinking about like how I want to react and respond. Yeah.
But we see quite a lot of contrasts, right? So there's very cold greens and blues against orange and pink. So they are quite also coming into this conflict with each other. And at the same time, the compositions are very rounded up, right? Especially with this 3 paintings, they're kind of encircling the water. So you have this feeling of, I don't know, for me, especially with the orange moon, kind of a theater stage, kind of something that you can walk in, and this gleaming path leading towards the orange sky. So this compositions, and I know that you mentioned that you preserved the compositions from the original drawings, and that it was important to you.
Yeah. So this composition came from a different place, actually on the other side of the Atlantic, like for these 3 that we're looking at here. And it was in Portugal, and it was this really wild beach with super rough, like silver waves, and a lot of cliffs, and also these huge rocks, like that made you feel like you're wrapped inside of something. And I did some sketching there with this same composition. And when I started the paintings in the studio, I realized I actually brought back a lot of very strong energy with me from that trip back to the studio. I also went paragliding, which was pretty crazy. So I came back with this like very wild energy, and I started with this composition to have this feeling that you're wrapped inside of these rocks. And I think the colors also really, took over in their own way, maybe from all this energy I brought back with me from the trip.
And almost all of the paintings we see are sort of deserted. We don't see anyone there, right? But at the same time, they are not abandoned. They kind of like living creatures, the rocks and the water and the sky and the moon, they are kind of living themselves, especially if we look back to the triptych, this rounded rocks, they look like bodies, like coiling bodies, emerging or submerging into the water. So it was also important that you were one-to-one with the ocean, right?
Yeah, I think it was really helpful. Yeah, because otherwise, like to paint something now that I am not in contact with physically, I feel too far removed or something to really bring myself in an honest way to the painting. And in the last series of the sunflowers, those were also all based on these observational drawings, which I did, and I think that's really slowly becoming like a very important part of my process, that I start with this observational drawing, and then it gives me some type of foundation, and then I feel like more free to have the colors be left more up to chance.
Since you mentioned your previous body of work, Sunflowers, I wanted to ask about the transition. So you finished Sunflowers and then you moved to the sea. What is this transition about? How do they speak together? And
I don't know if there's like an exact clear transition. I think we were talking about something, but I don't remember what the link exactly was.
About something you cannot hold on to, right?
Yeah. Thank you for reminding me. No, because we talked about it and then I couldn't remember. But I did this series of sunflower drawings, and I was drawing them as they were like slowly dying, I guess, I was in a COVID quarantine for 10 days, and I was like locked in a room with these sunflowers. And, I was, explaining to Liudmila that with, for example, a cut flower, it's like so beautiful and fresh, and you want to hold on to this feeling, but of course you can't, because every day it's changing and it's getting away from you. And maybe also with this series, I was thinking, how I said about homesickness or a longing for something. This is like a similar idea that you also cannot really ever go back to a place or a time in your life in the same way, and like this kind of vulnerable feeling was also a place to develop a work from that felt like interesting to me, and like that I needed to do it.
And the water is in constant movement, right? So it changes all the time, and you can see it in your works here that it could be so soft and calm, but it can be also kind of aggressive and sparkling. And so also I mean, water for centuries has been this place of creating mythologies, because it's an environment where we cannot survive. So we're kind of always watching it from the coastline, and then we put so many ideas and dreams, and we create creatures like mermaids, right, who inhabit this very distant and close environment. And actually we have in the whole show one work with the maritime creature also coming from waters, right? And that's the only one painting where we encounter face, right? And I wanted to ask you, why did you decide to include it, and what does it speak about?
Yeah, I think it's nice that we have just one, because then maybe once you see her, or I speak from my own perspective, once I see her, then maybe I have this idea that she's also in the other ones, we just can't see her. And I mean, this painting with the figure is also about the intimidation of water or sea, and it's about drowning. It's also about rising, and it's about like being in between, you know, maybe your future and your past, or air and water, or a place where you can feel comfortable and you can't. And I think this like balance of opposites is also important to me in general in making the paintings, and it came through there a bit.
And she looks like she belongs with water. She looks like that's her the place to be, and she looks like she wants to really get back and be covered with waters, and she's crying at the same time. And it's a very poetic and also very like open up work, I think. And also I wanted to say that you definitely achieved to create this very special magic in your sea paintings, and with this magical creature, like you mentioned now, who might create all this world. It also, like, you know, when you look at the paintings, they are so intense with colors that sometimes you don't know if this place not only exists, but if it's livable for us. It might be also very toxic, or it might be, you know, so it's kind of beautiful, but maybe also dangerous at the same time. And especially with this big contrast of oranges and blues and magentas, it gives a kind of also spikiness to it. It's not that comforting as well. Yeah.
Well, that's like, again, this contrast of feelings that I'm really interested in. And even like, you know, there's a certain danger in going too deep into your homesickness too.
Yeah, true. And also, we were talking about that sea is also a place to be, a place of memories, a place of your childhood. But also, of course, nowadays, if you pick up a subject matter like this, you cannot avoid thinking about ecological discourse, right? Because also like this genre of a seascape, or like how you once mentioned moonscape, which I also liked very much. We should talk about the moon, right? But this genre of a seascape, of sea painting, it's also I mean, it could be quite problematic, don't you think? In a way that whenever you think or create or do something about nature, inevitably you confront this discourse of that we cannot watch or observe nature with the same eyes like we used to, right?
Yeah, and I think I'm now, when I'm in these natural places, it feels, I always want to hold on to it even more, because it feels like these things are slowly slipping away, or maybe not so slowly. And, you know, that's like a new feeling, because when I was a child, I didn't have this feeling, and yeah, it feels like you also cannot have it, like maybe you wish you could have it. And I think the discourse is very important to, you know, it's important to acknowledge it.
Right, and also I think it's the way you transformed your original drawings and the way they've become this very imaginative sea paintings. It's also the way, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a place we do not exist anymore. Maybe it's before us or after us, right? So it's like a place maybe that you've foreseen in a way, or maybe you've seen it within.
Yeah, who knows?
But this whole feeling of your show, when you look at your paintings and you're kind of supposed to look at the sea, but you always have this feeling that you look inside you. So inside the way, like in a way you've created that sea, right? It's not like it's more like we follow your narration about what is the sea for you, how it's inside you. Your childhood, maybe impressions of it.
I mean, I think that the water, to paint water, like very slowly, I realized that it's like a mirror. And I didn't think about it like that at first. I really thought about it as a place that was almost more part of the land. But to really look at water and really try to draw water, it does kind of force you inside. I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe because we are also made of this water, or you know, maybe it's the nostalgia. I'm not exactly sure, but they're definitely like very emotional paintings. Yeah, and you know, I think it relates to this discourse you're talking about, because they're also a bit about vulnerability, and I think that's what we're thinking about now more, is how vulnerable everything is in our natural world.
Totally. And for a long time it was much about this catastrophic scenario in front of us, this kind of fear of this future, this kind of digging back into archive, this kind of in a way this statement that we cannot see, perceive, and you know, be in nature. And now there is a whole new kind of a different movement that is how I would describe it, and how many also theorists talk about it, is re-enchantment of nature. So we rediscover it, and we are re-enchanted by nature again, against this very strong ecological crisis, which bring us back to Romanticism, which appeared on the backdrop of the Industrial Revolution, which I think a very interesting, not even loop, but an interesting way we are developing art and our thought. Because, you know, when you look at Gerhard Richter, for example, and his landscapes and his paintings, this nature which is observed through a digital eye, this nature that is observed through many, many filters and kind of so distanced and kind of non-existent. And now we are experiencing this rise in very romantic, very imaginary painting that try to develop this very new approach of how we look at and think of nature. And when I look at your paintings, I can see that you follow, or not follow, but you're part of this new movement, if you want, or a part of this new way of thinking, kind of imagining and co-creating with nature together.
Yeah, I think like it's easier to romanticize things also when they feel more temporary or something.
And I mean, of course, we have much critiques towards romanticism of 19th century, but still thinking of that, this inner world, these emotional ideas raise up against this catastrophic and kind of non-humable environments is a very interesting, and also colors and kind of longing for being with nature and thinking of that we are part of it, right? And also what is interesting about the portrait that we have in the second room and about your colors, that it's kind of shifted in a way from the way like a human being will see it. Maybe it's all seen by her, this marine creature, and that's why it's also so different.
Yeah, maybe it's also like something about this re-enchantment is something about like rediscovering that you can get lost in nature, and maybe that's this figurative painting. She is kind of, she's there, she's very maybe lost, or I mean I definitely felt like when I was drawing, especially on this Portugal beach, like I really got lost in this water, and I really got taken away in this place, like taken away from myself. And you know, this feeling that's kind of an idea of being re-enchanted with something also, that you lose yourself. And maybe we'll forget that you can lose yourself in nature, because we all lose ourselves like in Instagram now. But it's refreshing, you know, that's like really where you will lose yourself if you allow for it. And you feel much better.
And also, when we look at your paintings, one element that catches our attention is this cartoonish, naive elements, like, for example, a cartoonish, naive orange moon, or like this cloud against the pink, candy pink sky. Wanted to ask you, where do these elements come from?
Yeah, that was like always in my work, but it was pretty recent. Someone came by my studio and they pointed out this cartoon element that they saw in the paintings. And to be honest with you, like before that, I always knew there was some cartoon thing going on, but I really tried to suppress it because I thought it's like not smart enough or something, or I don't know, I wasn't comfortable with it, and I judged myself for having this cartoon element, but or making cartoon paintings, but to hear someone's observation that there was just a cartoon element, it kind of gave me, for whatever reason at that moment, permission to embrace it as an element, and not as like something that takes over everything, like, because they're not cartoon paintings, but I think, yeah, I'm really now very interested in finding a way to insert little cartoon pieces or parts, so also you have this contrast between something that feels like much more related to the real thing, and then something that's kind of like a symbol of the thing, like in this middle painting in the clouds, like there's these yellow clouds that look kind of like they could be a real cloud, but then of course there's a cartoon cloud over there that's very flat and like out of Bugs Bunny or something. And I'm super interested now in like finding ways to insert different types of language into the paintings, because the cartoon is like its own vocabulary, and then if I can find a way to have that and like a different vocabulary, like letting the paint drip, like for me that's starting to get pretty interesting.
And what kind of vocabulary is cartoon?
What is cartoon? Like, you know, to have a very clear edge, like sharp edge, and not a lot of details, but a very clear shape. And, you know, if there are details, then maybe they're just little dots or something.
So it's about...
And kind of flat.
Being clearer.
Really clear, yeah. But also with like something recognizable. Like we all see that those clouds are, we all recognize them as clouds, like probably anyone in the world would, but it's also like, doesn't really look like the real thing. So yeah, finding some kind of balance also of this opposing forces, of like a cutout version of something and then a more, you know, rendered version of something.
Is it also connected to that you were thinking back about your childhood and your memories?
No, I don't think it's childhood. I mean, but I don't think it's childhood, but I know that I'm super interested now in watching cartoons. Like, but not because I'm like dying to get my childhood back or something. I actually didn't have a TV for many years of my childhood. But like from a painterly perspective, it became really informative for me lately to watch cartoons, because I'm seeing them as paintings with like all the answers that I'm always looking for, like this distant background that's kind of a little blurry, and then up close these like really, you know, big strong shapes that build up character. And I love when people fall and there's like these swirling stars or lines, which, you know, it's like all about symbolizing something. It's also very playful, you know, and I love the colors and the flatness, and they really, I think, have a lot of answers for me as a painter.
And let's talk a little bit more about the triptych Whale song. It's very interesting the way you build it up together, because the central part looks very elaborated and sophisticated with the waters, and the flank sides are kind of simpler, and they look maybe even a bit undone, or kind of really clear. What was the idea behind to have this dynamic?
So I first did the central panel like 6 months ago or something, and it always felt like a little bit it was bursting out of the edges or something like this. And I knew that we wanted to have a big painting for this show, so I decided to like see what happens if I add on either side and give it breathing room to like really expand outwards. And I did think I would like continue with all this kind of light on the water, but actually it felt like enough to add something more simple on the edges, and then you can also really focus on the light area. And yeah, it does actually, you know, happen when you watch the water, that some areas are like getting all the light and are super bright, and then some are really not getting light hitting on them, so they stay kind of flat and velvety and dark. And so it was kind of also from that idea.
And here the rocks are so soft. They look almost like bodies, warm from the sun, but true, they are so, the soft lines, and they're very roundy, and you have this feeling of tentacles or sort of bodies emerging from the water. And yeah, these cartoonish elements with the dots and the cloud, it makes it very radiant and joyful. It's full of joy, full of sun and joy and enjoyment.
Yeah, that was kind of by chance that they felt soft. But I do think that it's like these two edges also were kind of like a test of how much I can leave out, and still how much is coming out at you as the viewer, with me like deciding to leave certain things out of the painting, which is again something I'm thinking a lot about, like what to keep and what to include and what to not include. Yeah. Which is also the attraction to cartoons, at least the ones that I'm watching, like
the reduction.
They're so reduced, yeah. But you still get everything you need.
And also, triptych as a medium is also about telling a story. It's about narration and the way how you build it. So it's all like circling around this central panel. So you get our eye to travel with you and to follow this water currents and flows, and it's kind of magnetizing you in this shiny water. And I wanted to ask, because of course there are many artists whom I can think about who also painted water, sea, ocean. I wanted to ask what is your inspiration, what artists you are inspired by? It doesn't necessarily to be who do sea paintings, but in general, so maybe we can see some not inspiration behind, but sort of whom you follow and whom you look at, and who is interesting for you.
So I look a lot at my friend Nicole Wittenberg's paintings. I learned like more from her than anyone about painting, and because I think she's like balancing so many things I'm interested in, like developing a color palette that's really kind of personal, and developing a language that's your own, and she has like a really beautiful way of keeping the marks very loose but the imagery very strong, which is really hard, and it's something I'm trying to think about more all the time, how to make that work. And I look at Alex Katz a lot. He had it was super great. He had this big show recently in the Albertina, and it was a really fantastic show, which even showed his process, where he starts with these small drawings and builds them up into larger cartoon drawings and then into large paintings. And I just think he has like really developed a language of this really elegant balance of like just adding the perfect amount, so you're getting so much richness with such kind of little, it feels like little effort. I don't know, he makes it seem very easy. And then there was, like for this show, there was this painting I saw by Edvard Munch in the Belvedere, in this recent painting show they had there. It really blew me away, this painting. And it was like right around the time when I started to do this series about water. And it's quite large, like a large square with lavender colored water and this moon reflecting and rocks, and the way that he developed like this brushwork of making everything, I mean, this is like how he painted really in general. This, you get this like feeling that, I don't know, there's like an octopus painted or something, like it's so smooth lines. And but I really started to think about how you could, you know, get this motion into the water, seeing that painting, and how you could like wrap the rocks into the sea and wrap the moonlight into the water, and you get this like very complete sensation, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really interested in paintings that are giving me a strong feeling, you know, which it doesn't always happen. So it's really when it does happen, it's super special. There's also this room in the Kunsthistorisches Museum with the Velázquez royal children that he painted, that these paintings are like so unbelievable to me, because they are so filled with light, and they are like really glistening, but also so reductive. And yeah, I'm very obsessed with that room of paintings. And I'm so happy it's in Vienna.
You can definitely see that you were studying the light, not only the water, but also the light. And you have moon. And also we know that moon is very much connected to water, right? Because it directs its tides. And here you have this different experience of lights. And you even sometimes refer to your painting as moonscapes. So the moon is the same important as the water, right? And also in the titles we have moonrise. So it's also very much about this magical light of a moon.
Yeah, I think it is that for sure, but the moon in all these cases was completely imagined and made up. Like, I never saw the moon in any of these. These were not in the drawings, and the moon was not out when I made the drawings. So that was kind of, I felt like something was missing, and maybe it's me or something, and I am the moon, I don't know. Or maybe it's like a relatable object, you know, that we all have this feeling we get when we see the moon, and it kind of personified the landscape a little bit. And it also gave me this way to do something cartoony before I even was thinking about it. But yeah, I love this like moonlight and the light you get also at this strange times of day when the moon is out but not the sun, or yeah, it's a very different like reflective light than the sun. Because I actually didn't include the sun in any of these. Maybe one in the back room has the sun, but
and this one is very sunny.
It's sunny, but you don't see the sun.
True.
Yeah.
And also one element I wanted to ask about, I'm very curious, because you can trace in many of the paintings this black dot that appears in the sky, right? What is it?
So that one, I think I added it first in the other room. It was really also something like, it felt like something was missing in the sky, like it wasn't enough to just have the moon. And I added it in first because compositionally it made sense to have a black dot, and it somehow like completed the painting. Like I think it was either this one or the other one. I just really felt something's missing, and I added that, and then it was done. I mean, which is a pretty cool way to finish a painting. That if you don't know what to do, and you can add a black dot,
like in the end of a sentence. Or?
Yeah, a period. Yeah, beautiful. But yeah, of course, it has like, it could have its own meaning, like that it's also kind of scary, this idea of like a dark star in the sky that you don't recognize. Or I also liked that it made something feel super far away, and so it gives you more depth, like to look deeper into the painting. It was also this very simple thing, you know.
I wrote about it in my text, but thinking of these rocks like bodies. I don't know, watching also this black dot reminded so much of a beauty mark, of something that would be on a body, you know, like in this case on the body of the sky, because on your paintings actually it feels very, everything has its body. The moon is very rounded and sexy, and the body is fiery and big and solid, and water has this fluid body, and it's very poetic. And I know that while working at the show, you were reading a lot Emily Dickinson, a poet who comes from the place you grew up in.
Not so far,
Not so far away. And I wanted even to read a poem that Lauren sent to me while she was working on the show, which I think gives maybe like an other perspective, or maybe a different entrance to Lauren's work. The Outlet. My river runs to thee, blue sea, wilt welcome me. My river waits reply, oh sea looks graciously. I'll fetch thee brooks from spotted nooks, say sea, take me. It's also very interesting that you were thinking about poetry, because the whole series is very poetic.
Yeah, I like this line about the sea take me. Yeah, and you can, I think the Sea of Love painting, the purple painting with the figure, is really also about this feeling of just like letting go and letting the sea carry you away.
Yeah, that's true. And also, the other day when we were walking with you through the show, you pointed out that you are now interested in your painting to have like this little entrances to the viewers. Can you maybe show us and talk a little bit about these entrances that you leave to enter your paintings?
Yeah, it was really by chance, but in this one it was left that there was this little archway in the bottom corner, which I later realized is kind of like visually, if you made yourself smaller, a little door into the painting. And then I started thinking about this more, that it happened also like by chance in this one with the orange moon at the bottom in the pink rock. There's kind of this little door, and it was really not intentional, but it was something I thought about later as another way to maybe enter a painting through a small door.
But it's also a very interesting idea about entering the painting, because here this strong sense of a stage, even with this very dark four line that we see, that would be like a stage line, and then you have this, and also the feeling that it's huge. It's not that big in reality, but you perceive that painting, that sea painting, as a really environment, as something you can step into.
I mean, that's a really big compliment to me as a painter, if someone can, because it's not so big, this painting, but if it gives you the feeling that it's this really huge place, then it feels like I did something right. Also because of I'm really always trying to maximize the scale or something. So if you can make something small feel really big, then that would be something I would be happy could happen, especially for someone else and not just for me.
And how did it feel to work with such a big scale as the triptych?
That was really nice, because I like the physicality of it, because to draw this big shape, I really stretched myself, and I really used my entire body and my entire arm, which feels like a nice stretch.
you can feel the dynamic in your paintings. You can follow your brush movements, and they are very fluid, like water.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the opportunity to get really into the painting, especially like, you know, I'm not so tall, so for me it's the size of my whole body, but like to physically get at that level and get into the painting from a body level, for me is also like a very exciting feeling, because, you know, still like these smaller ones, I often was painting them on the floor, so I still think there was a certain level of physicality in them, but not so extreme as this, because you really have to like use your body.
Yeah, and also, I mean, coming back shortly to poetry, also the titles are so poetic. We have Moonrise, we have Moon Music. So where did this come from? This is it also from Emily Dickinson in this reading of poetry?
No, I think the titles, they're pretty simple titles. They're mostly just 1 or 2 words, and I want to give like a little hint at something, but I don't really want to describe something so much. So hopefully they're like a little offering. I mean, I like to make titles. I don't want them to be untitled. But I also don't want them to give away all the answers or something.
And will you continue with sea paintings, or do you have a feeling that this body of work is done, like with sunflowers, and then you move to the next subject matter?
No, I'm continuing with the sea, yeah, but I'm adding seagulls.
So
you have more of the sound. I want to have this like sound of seagulls. I mean, and you'd have to hear it in your mind, but I want to like also have something more focused on the sky above the water and like what can happen there, because in these ones the sky, I mean the water is filling up almost to the top of the canvas, and yeah, I think I'm like lowering the horizon line, so you have still water but more space for sky, and there's some birds.
So you again go to plein air, and you will begin sketching on the sea coast?
Yeah, I already did sketches in this summer, which I'm working from. Yeah. So let's see. It's the very beginning, so you never know for sure. But
and about the material, because of course your pastel sketches and then to work with oil painting, it's so different.
Yeah, that's really it's very tricky to figure out how to do that, and I really don't feel like I'm figured it out. I don't know if it's possible to ever really figure something out fully. Like I'm always trying to change and develop my process so I can get like closer to something, like the feeling of what I'm after in the painting, but it's like really a long process. I mean, painters usually paint for their whole life because you never really get there. So, but yeah, I am getting like a little more clear every day in my process and my focus too. Like the focus is really the main thing for me, because I really struggled in my life with staying focused on like one subject matter or one image or one way of working, and I'm getting a bit better at being focused.
And maybe also cartoon helps here. This idea of simplicity, of something very reduced, almost like a symbol of a thing, right?
I think that helps, yeah. There's like little tools, you know, that you start to learn, and then maybe the tools are working better or something. Yeah.
So you will be continuing with the sea.
Yeah, I like the sea. Yeah, and I think it's, you know, it's not, I'm not ready to move away from that, and maybe I won't. Like, it feels like something I could stay with for a really long time.
And something that is really magical, and what you mentioned about not being able to hold on to, like not being able to hold on to your memories, right? And then the sea comes as this constantly changing material that you can, like you told me the other day, that when you were sketching at the sea coast, you would look at water and then at the paper, and the next glance it will be already different.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like this, you cannot grip it, right? You cannot grip it in the moment. It will be again new the next moment you look at it.
Yeah. So that's like a very interesting subject matter also, so that it's, you can't really like possess it or something.
So it's and that's why you can be so different, right? It's also from being really active, aggressive and bright to kind of be this mellow and soft and velvety.
Yeah, I mean, I think it gave it, in this body of work, that subject matter gave me a lot of freedom. So that's like an attractive thing to have.
Thank you. We're very much looking forward to seeing your new series and to hear the seagulls in your work. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.